Hi.
I'm Christine.
Hi, Christine. Oh.
Out. Welcome, Saturday class.
I only see 9 people. Do you guys have like a different view that you're looking at?
Up at gallery view, and I think if it's up in the corner, and then you can see, I can see 1, 2, 3, 4 times 1, 2, 3, 4. I can see 16, and then whoever's speaking, their like a little window pops up, and I can see them. It's cool.
Yeah, sometimes there's 2 windows, and it can be interesting because there's like a group window and a speaker window. Welcome, everyone. I'm going to mute all of you for just a sec so we can get oriented. And I'm super excited to meet all the Saturday faces, and we'll talk about your goddess / class spirit mascot in just a minute. You've probably watched 2 replays at this point, so you have a little bit of an idea kind of how this works. If it's your first time live, do take a second to sort of like orient yourself at your screen now. See if you can figure out how to raise a hand, lower a hand, maybe throw your favorite yoga pose in the chat. Let's do that really quick. Because I know for a lot of people on this call, this is their first call. Okay, I see camel in the chat. I should see a lot more yoga poses in the chat. So let's do this. Warrior 2, down dog, says Rachel, pigeon. Okay, so chat box, really important you know how to use that one. And then the other thing you want to know how to do is to mute and unmute yourself. So you guys were kind of chatting before I came on, which is perfect. But we can just take a minute of noise to just practice muting and unmuting yourself to see if you can get that happening.
Hello.
Namaste.
Hi.
Good morning.
Okay, awesome. Cool. Yay. All right, so I'm going to mute everyone again. And if you didn't get it, don't worry. This calls. We have some time. You'll get there. But those are the kind of the key things: the chat, the raising hand, and the muting. So Stephanie is going to lead us, I believe, for our opening. Is she here?
I'm here.
Yay. Okay.
Good morning, everyone. Well, for me, it's mid-morning. Okay. Everybody,
can you unmute? Sorry, hold on. I'm going to mute all because there was people who were still unmuted. Okay, now Stephanie, unmute.
okay.
Okay, now we're good. Sorry about that.
That's okay. Good morning, everyone, or afternoon, depending on where you are. Find a comfortable seat and close your eyes. We're going to do a mini chakra clearing meditation today. I'm just going to set my timer for myself because I don't want to go over. Okay. Close your eyes and elongate your spine by evenly distributing your left and right sit bones into your chair or floor, wherever it is you're sitting. Dipping the chin and making sure that it's parallel to the floor and lengthening through the crown of your head. Allowing the thoughts of your day to start to dissolve, whether your day is beginning or if you're coming to the end of your day. Just let the day dissolve away and come into your here and now and start connecting with your breath. On the inhale, we're going to inhale for 4. So on the next inhale, count 1, 2, 3, 4. And we're going to exhale for 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Do that a couple times on your own before we move into the next part of the meditation. Begin to bring your attention to the base of your spine where your root chakra lies. Bring in the color red. On your next inhale, inhale a glowing red light through the area of your chakra. And on the exhale, exhale it out through the top of your head, crown of your head. Bringing in the feeling of grounding, allowing the feeling of a grounding to wash over you as you inhale and exhale through the top of your head. On your next inhale, bring your awareness to the sacral chakra, your second chakra, and bring in the color orange to mind. And on your in-breath, inhale through the sacral chakra, color orange, allowing the feeling of creativity or flowingness to wash over you, the ability to flow with change. And exhale out the crown of your head. On your next inhale, bring your awareness to your Manipura chakra, your third chakra, the color yellow. Inhaling for 4 into that area, feeling a sense of courage and strength wash over you, a sense of empowerment. And on the exhale, envisioning that yellow color coming out of the crown of your head to the heavens. On your next inhale, we're going to come through with green to the heart chakra, allowing ourselves to feel a sense of love and compassion for ourselves and for everyone around us. Exhaling it through the top of your head. For the fifth chakra, we'll inhale the color blue through your throat chakra, feeling a sense of courage for open communication, and exhaling through the top of your head. Bringing our awareness to our third eye center, possibly rolling our eyes to that point between the eyebrows, inhaling for a count of 4 through the third eye chakra, feeling a sense of intuition, knowingness, and exhaling through the top of the head. On our next inhale, we will inhale through the crown chakra, feeling a sense of wisdom wash over us, and exhaling out the top of your head. Take a moment to sit and breathe in the rainbow, through the rainbow of colors in each chakra, allowing the breath to brighten each chakra on the inhale and sending the energy through to the top of your head to the heavens above. Feeling the power of all the senses of each chakra wash over you, and possibly bringing a small smile to your lips. Now begin to gently dim the lights of these chakra colors into a golden yellow ball in whichever chakra you feel you need it to open for you, or wherever it's called to go. Just breathe into that space. I want you to think about taking the feeling from that chakra with you for the rest of your day, possibly journaling on it later today and seeing what has come up for you, what you may need. No judgment. As you're ready, dip your chin. Slowly open your eyes. Take in the area of your room. And I thank you for meditating with me today. Namaste. I forgot to use my singing bowl. I brought my singing bowl and I wanted to ding you guys out, but I totally forgot because I was so nervous. I'll admit.
There's always next time.
Meditation is not my strong suit, guys, okay? Just so you know, I've been through the training like meditation is not my strong suit.
We all have what we like and don't like. I thought it was beautiful and really, really fun. Can people put in the chat, what chakra did they feel? I'm so curious. For me, it was heart, was like the one that I had. What did other people have? People are saying sacral, throat, heart, root, third eye. Nice variety, sacral. It was interesting because the meditation it's hard to do the chakras in such a short time. But when you said like, where does the energy need to go? I felt it like right away. So that was really cool. People are saying third eye, throat, sacral. And then, okay, let's see. I'm going to practice using our polling feature again. Put yes if you know what the chakras are and no if you do not. Because we haven't covered this yet. So, I mean, if you don't know, that's totally fine because we're going to go into it in depth later in the training. So you can just think of this as sort of a fun mini intro. Okay, so it seems like 10% don't know and like 90% know.
Yeah, I apologize for not being such more detailed. I was trying to get it in at like under 3 minutes.
Stephanie was doing something very good, which is keeping her meditation under 3 minutes, which is what we need to do just because we have so much material we need to cover on each of these calls. So she actually had a timer. Here, I'll share the results. And that's a really good thing for you guys to do too when you lead your meditation is have a timer. Because we're going to talk a lot about timing your classes later. And that's really important as well to finish class on time. And we'll go into all of that when we do sequencing and stuff down the road. So before we go any further, I wanted to introduce you all to this. Stop sharing. I want to introduce you guys to Durga, who is the beautiful goddess of this class. She is, I think third chakra power when I look at this card. So Durga is how it's pronounced. She's really all about creating boundaries, which I think is really important in life in general, but also when you're taking a training like this, right? So we could think of that as literally creating boundaries in sense of time and space for you to actually study and, watch the calls and watch your replays. But in addition, in a larger sense, it's about boundaries in the terms of kind of what are you taking in and what are you choosing to let remain outside. So that could mean like energetically, but it could also mean in terms of the material, right? Like maybe something really resonates with you and you want to let that in and something doesn't sit quite right yet. So you want to leave that out. So that's really up to each of you individually. I really want to empower you guys to be whatever kind of teacher you want to be and just provide the information. So it's really up to you, right? What's going to feel right. Like Stephanie said, she's not a huge fan of, teaching meditation. So that's not where she's focusing right now. So you're going to have the same sorts of things. You're going to be like, oh, I really like this, or, this isn't sitting as well. And it's totally normal. So be cognizant of that you can really choose what to take in and what to sort of leave out at any given time. And then make sure you're protecting yourself, right? Creating space for self-care. Going through a training like this is putting a lot of stress, probably. Stress is sort of a negative word, but, it's a big demand that is going to affect other areas of your life. So really what this goddess is teaching us is that clear boundaries is a sign of self-love, right? Clear boundaries is self-love, because if we don't have clear boundaries, we're just kind of being buffeted around by the needs of everyone else. And yeah, you want to make your training, your time on the mat, a priority. So super fierce card, and I'll show it one more time. But yeah, that's who you guys have. Pretty intense. Okay, awesome. Oh, you just read Awakening Shakti. Sally Kempton's so great. That's really cool, Kristen. Okay, so Maxine, I'm going to lower your hand because I'm assuming it's from practicing earlier, but if you actually wanted to say something, just unmute yourself. All right, so let's go over what we are doing today. Let's dive in. And you guys are all going to get a chance to talk to each other and meet each other in your jettas at the end of the call. And Stephanie and the TAs and I are, we have a lot of really cool ideas about how we're going to make your jettas more and more interactive as time goes on. So we're excited about that. But for now, it's just about everyone getting to know each other. Okay, so to review, 1.1, we talked about anatomical and energetic reasons to chant. And hopefully you guys watch that. There's a replay there. If you haven't, check it out. For the homework, you were sort of writing out your own personal definition for each line of the Guru chant. So again, it's a personal definition, so there's no right and wrongs, but you can, of course, rewatch the video with Kristen to sort of compare what you had with what Kristen had. And then I posted in the Facebook group a link to another translation that's much more literal that also has a really nice audio recording of it with very nice pronunciation if you want to look at that. Another question that came up earlier in the group was sort of the lineage of the training and the teachings that were passed down, and that's also in the Facebook group if you want to check that out. So then we also talked about our attitudes towards chanting, like is it something you think you want to incorporate or not incorporate? In 1.2, we really talked about how yoga is all about being in the present moment, and we're sort of shifting the focus from making the person having to be perfect in the pose to really adapting the pose a little bit more to fit the individual as a unique anatomical specimen. And we're going to talk more about that as we go on these next couple weeks. But we really talked about how yoga is about coming into the present, right? Yoga is about being in the now, being able to fully, deeply breathe and be in the now, not wanting to get anywhere. So we're not pushing our students to go farther past their range. We want to make sure they're in nice, sweet, safe alignment, but we're not pushing anyone like deeper in their Paschimottanasana, forward fold, anything like that. Yeah. So again, and there's a replay about both of these. And then I think where we're at right now is 1.3, where we're talking about Sutra 2.1, which is such an amazing one. And I think I wanted to start by asking if someone would unmute and tell us their definition of tapas, which is also the first homework question. And there's no right or wrong. Well, I mean, there's a little bit right or wrong, but these definitions of these words, when we go into when we go into the Sanskrit language, and we'll see this later in the Sanskrit module, is broad, right? They can be translated a lot of different ways, which is what makes this fun and like ripe for discussion. When you unmute yourself, I forgot to kind of force people to do this earlier in the week, but if you can, just say your name and where you're from before you start talking, because that's also going to help us all get to know each other. So does anyone, Linda, if we have questions on topics that are covered in a call we cannot attend, how can we post them up front? So you can ask them now, or the best thing to do would be to post them in the Facebook group so I can see them and either just answer them during the week or we can address them on a live call. But yeah, you're game to ask anything on these calls. I mean, it would be great if it wasn't about material that we haven't covered yet, but anything else. That's why we're live. It's a service of you. But I'm also going to try to kind of guide the discussion, so I'm not just waiting for questions. So yeah, please feel free to ask. Okay, so does anyone want to unmute and tell us what tapas means to them? And then also the pose or poses they wrote that generate a sense of tapas. I heard someone.
Namaste, Brett. You're able to hear me?
Yes. Can you say your name and where you're from?
Yeah, this is Umakant and I'm from New Jersey.
Awesome.
Yeah. So it's a coincidence. Probably you've seen the background that I have a picture of Durga.
Yeah, it's a little fuzzy, but we can see it in the background now that you tell me what it is.
No. So I think basically tapas is all the effort and the practice that you put into probably your daily practice and kind of the challenges that you face. Maybe you're doing probably taking up some different thing like a vegetarian. You're trying to be a vegetarian, but then you probably miss out on some things. And then you think, okay, how do I put it back, or how do I practice this? It's very tough. So eventually you might go through some suffering and pain, but that is for the betterment and growth of your higher self.
Wow, really sophisticated definition. I love it. A lot of times people just say like heat, right? And tapas can also be translated like that, right? Like heat or even like single pointed focus. But like you're saying, yeah, it's so much more than that, right? It's like accepting that challenge is there to make us stronger, to help us evolve into our higher self. What pose did you write that evoked a sense of tapas for you? What physical pose?
Oh, for me, it was actually, I do a lot of meditative poses, so Siddhasana and like Chakrasana and Sarvangasana.
Nice. Sarvangasana, you said, is the last one?
Yes.
Shoulder stand, yeah?
Yeah, true.
Yeah, perfect. Good job using all the Sanskrit. I'm just, in case people don't know. Awesome, thank you so much. Does someone else want to tell us any poses they had for, she says plank, yeah. What else? Put in the chat, what other poses were the tapas poses? Thunderbolt, half moon, lizard, triangle. For me, I think chair. I do not like being in chair pose. Utkatasana, right? Chair, Utkatasana. Yeah, arm balances, totally. Awesome. So tapas, like I said, heat, but we're taking it beyond just sweating, right? Into exactly what he said. So accepting that challenges make us stronger, and painful experiences, I don't love the word painful, right? But challenging experiences can be used for spiritual growth if we choose to see them that way. It's a really good, I would say that's a very good mindset to have, right? Because life is inevitably going to challenge us. Okay, cool. Let's go on to the next one. Thank you so much for volunteering. Ishvara Pranidhana. It's a little tricky to say. Does someone want to share or unmute for that one? And again, tell us your name and where you're from.
Hi.
Hello.
I'm Lauren from the UK. And Ishvara Pranidhana, it means to soften and to surrender and to let go. And the thing I really like of it is to let go the need to control everything.
Totally. What pose did you write for this one?
I put like a down dog. I really enjoy down dogs and puppies for me. They help me relax, but I guess Savannah is a really good one for it.
Shavasana?
Yeah, sorry. Shavasana.
Yes. What other poses did people put for, thank you so much for Ishvara Pranidhana. Oh, interesting. So great comment from Emily. She said, I find this much harder than tapas. It's like Ishvara Pranidhana is my tapas. Now that is a very sophisticated comment. Can people relate to that, or does anyone agree? And I'm going to try to unpack, and maybe she can talk. I'm going to unmute Emily if she's willing to talk. Before we go into that very, very interesting, insightful comment, let's just define Ishvara Pranidhana as a group. So people are putting in someone put boat pose for Ishvara Pranidhana. Jamie, you're going to need to explain that to me. Surrendering that you can hold it. I don't know. So I think Shavasana, right? I think Paschimottanasana. I think Supta Baddha Konasana, right? So butterfly. But again, this is going to be personal, right? If someone finds down dog really like a feeling of relaxing and surrender, that's fine too. So there's no right answers here, but to go over Ishvara Pranidhana. So just like she said, surrender of what you think should happen, right? So it's a sense of ease and letting go. When we talk about manifesting, this is sort of the secret, right? Because it's like you put in the tapas, you put in the hard work to go after what you want, but ultimately you surrender to a force greater than yourself. So this is why sometimes in a lot of texts, and I think you'll see it in the sutras text we look at, this is actually translated as God sometimes, right? Because really what it's saying, it's like it's belief in something greater than yourself, right? Belief in something greater than yourself. That's where that element of surrender comes in. There was something else I wanted to say. Yeah, so it's like you put in the fruits of your labor, but you also let go. And this is also a little bit about, I think of it a lot in my own practice as living into the mystery of life, right? Instead of having to know so much, like what's right and what's wrong and what's going to happen and trying to figure everything out. It's a little bit of like stepping into that place of like, I'm just going to celebrate the mystery of the situation, this time period I'm in, how this practice is going to go. Because when we talk about something as the unknown, there can be anxiety correlated with that. But I really love thinking of it as like the mystery, right? Because that doesn't have that same negative connotation. If anything, it's sort of like beautiful, right? There's so many mysteries in life and things that don't really make sense. And we'll talk about that deeper when we go into tantric philosophy much later in the training, because that philosophy is very much accepting of this idea that, you know, kind of two opposite things can be true at the same time. And, you know, we can have someone who's the love of our life, but not necessarily the right long-term partner for us, right? There's so many things like that. So this idea of surrender to something that we don't know what it is, but that there's some sort of divine order. If you're, you know, spiritual or religious, it could be God, that we're welcoming in. Yeah. Okay. So next one. Oh, I didn't have you do Svadhyaya for the homework, it looks like, because we covered that in the first video. Does anyone remember what it means or want to put in the chat? And Angela said, it's that feeling to let the miracles of life unfold. Yes, totally. What does Svadhyaya mean? Rachel White said, study, self-study, study of yourself. Yeah. So in this context, in this sutra, I would invite you to think of Svadhyaya, that self-study, as observing the interplay of these two dynamics within yourself, right? Observing, where do I have the tapas going on, and where do I need to invite in a little more Ishvara Pranidhana, or if I'm not taking any action at all, right? Maybe I need to invite in a little more tapas, right? So ultimately, yoga is helping us become more aware, right? It's the study of, like some call it, like yoga is us figuring out that we are this greater awareness. We are behind our thoughts. So you can kind of think of Svadhyaya in this context of observing the interplay of those two dynamics as they play out in your life, which leads us beautifully to Emily's comment. Emily, are you willing to chat with us? Would you unmute and tell us what you meant by what you wrote earlier?
Yeah, for sure. So in my day-to-day life, I'm the president of a tech company, and we're a small team and we're growing really quickly. So every minute in the office, every minute to work really counts. And I find that I'm always doing so much in a day, working so hard. And as we kind of manage this next jump of the company, it's important that there's kind of some tight control and process around things. So since so much of my day right now is work, 8 to 10 hours, sometimes more, that tapas is almost my default operating mode at the moment, that heat and that hard work. And so I find sometimes when I get to my mat, it's really hard to get to that point of surrender. And sometimes it can feel really scary even to spend an hour just completely letting go. And I used to not like yin yoga at all because of that. And I realized it really was not because I didn't like the style of yoga, but because it was really what I needed to learn to let go. But it's still a struggle. I still have to work really, really hard to get to that point of surrender, which is funny because the tapas is the kind of the hard work, and the surrender always feels like it should be the easy bit, but I almost have to bring the hard work to get to the surrender.
Yeah, so I thank you so much for sharing that. And people are saying in the chat that they can relate to you, so you're not alone. And this is going to be true for a lot of your students, right? I'm going to launch another poll really quick. But how many people? Let me. Can I close this? Hold on. Oops. Hold on. If I relaunch, clear existing polling results. Okay. So. Okay, put how many people enjoy Shavasana? Put yes. And how many people find Shavasana challenging? Put no. Okay, so far everyone enjoys Shavasana. But what you're gonna see with a lot of your students is that in Shavasana, they're like fidgeting and they don't really know how to lie still. Some of them won't even feel comfortable closing their eyes, actually. I'm going to end this poll. I'm going to relaunch. Okay. How many people put yes if you really enjoy yin yoga, or if you find yin yoga challenging? So if you find kind of a vinyasa, more heating practice easier, put no. Put yes if you really enjoy the yin. Okay, here we're getting a more even distribution, right? Because for a lot of us, and again, you're going to see this for a lot of your students, their work, because especially we live in a time period where people are asked to be more active and on their phones, on their devices, working harder than ever before in, I think, human history, right? We're more connected than ever before, but that comes sort of with some negative aspects too, right? We don't celebrate just doing nothing or having downtime. So a lot of people are just habituated, I put myself in this camp as well, to being go, go, go all the time. And it's much, much more challenging to, say, I'm just going to lie in Shavasana for 45 minutes than it would be to go to a power yoga class, right? And so then you're like, oh, well, that ends up then, so that's why it's so important we have this broader definition of tapas. Because if we think of tapas as just sweat, right, then it's like the power yoga class is clearly the answer. But when we have this deeper understanding of what tapas is, which it's really like that which we find difficult, that is in service of our growth, right? That for many people, like type A or, people who are very successful in their careers, that kind of thing, for them, it's easy to run a marathon. For them, it's easy to train for something like an Ironman. For them, it's easy to go to power yoga and do a billion chaturangas. Not in the sense that it's physically easy, they're probably sweating, but what they really need, right, is perhaps to do yin yoga or to take Shavasana or to meditate. Yeah. So we're kind of going pretty deep here, but is this landing okay for folks? And I see Maxine and Laura have their hand raised. So if one of you has your hand raised because you'd like to speak, can you unmute yourself?
Yes.
Otherwise, okay,
Hi.
perfect. Laura, hi.
So I'm Laura from Tyrol, Austria. I just wanted to say that it was for me also at the beginning that I also have a career project manager at a global pharma company, so a lot of stress at work. And at the beginning, I also needed power yoga to get down. And then I started doing yin, and now power yoga is stressful for me. So I can't do it anymore. It's impossible. So somehow everything changed after I started really going into yin yoga. So I think it's first to learn to do it, and then you don't want to miss it at all. And now I struggling with doing classes when I need to stand up.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. So this is what she's bringing up is interesting too, because what we need changes over time, right? So that's another thing that yoga is kind of helping us when we go back to that idea from one of the first videos, right? Yoga is about being in the moment of now. Well, it's like, what do you need in the moment of now? Sometimes you might need a practice that's more heating, right? So power yoga isn't evil, right? If I'm feeling sluggish or lethargic or, I've been sitting on my couch for 5 days because, I'm going through something, right? Like getting into that physical heat might be really, really needed. But again, it's having that self-awareness of knowing what you need to pick in any given moment. Okay, let's keep going. And I'm going to look at the chat. The next one we're talking about now, video 1.4. Sutra 2.46, Sthira Sukham Asanam, right? So translation, yoga is a comfortable, steady seat, would be pretty literal, but we know it's much deeper than that, right? We're talking about yoga. So now we're talking about asana, which is one of the 8 limbs of yoga. So just the physical part of yoga, which is the part that probably all of us are the most familiar with, or the part that's kind of practiced, at least in the West. It's the balance between this idea of structure and freedom, or effort and ease. And for the homework, it asks to pick a physical yoga pose and describe the elements of Sthira and Sukham in that pose. Where is the body working? where is form and rigidity needed, but where is the body channeling sukham, openness or release? So does someone want to share what they had for that one? Okay, Aisha.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes, and tell us where you're from.
I live in Dubai.
Say it again?
I live in Dubai.
In Dubai, awesome.
Wait, the pose I chose was pigeon just because it's my favorite one and I'm most acquainted with it. I would say the body's working at the hips, where the hips are opening, and your back, which is arching. For me, the part that is stira is when it's working is the back and the shoulders, because they're arching and your shoulders are holding you up and you have to keep your hips squared. And the hips are where it's kind of like the release and the softness, the inner thighs as well. Or at least that's for me.
Are you talking about king pigeon or
normal pigeon?
Normal pigeon, so relaxing.
Yeah, when I'm not like folded forward, when you're still like sitting
When
up.
you're still up. Okay, just clarifying. Yes, because you said back arched and shoulders, so I'm just thinking you're not folded forward yet. You're in pigeon with your hands on the ground and you haven't yet folded forward.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Cool. Thank you. So I think for a lot of these poses, and I'm going to invite in this idea and you guys can all, and again, there's no right answer. This is all what we're feeling in our own bodies. But a lot of what we're looking for is structure, and we're going to go much deeper into this. Structure so that we can have good space, especially in the joints, right? So we don't compress the joints. So we're going to talk about how especially the knee joint is one that we really want to protect and keep safe. So we want structure, we want muscular engagement, but we want this sense of ease as well. And Aisha, I think she did a great job with the physical, but what are we doing in all the yoga postures that brings in that sense of ease? And what would she likely be doing in that pigeon that she described for us?
She'd need to be breathing.
Breathing. Yeah. Yeah.
Keeping a good breath so it's not constricted.
Yes. Thank you. That was Sandra. Can you tell us where you're from?
Sorry, yeah, from Ireland.
Sandra from Ireland. Yes. Yeah. So a lot of this is about muscular engagement, but I can do muscular engagement in like a tense way where it's like, or I think of like, you know how you see people at the gym and they're like, I think they're doing bicep crunches or something. Is that kind of what we're going after in the yoga practice? Not so much, right? Not so much. So they have the stira going on big time, but what they're missing is that sukha. And this is like what makes yoga magical, right? I think we can all agree on that. This is where the magic is, because we're aware and trying to balance these two elements, right? If we just have one or we just have the other, it's not really yoga. The beauty of yoga is that we have that muscular engagement, but we're breathing, right? And we're calming the nervous system, and we're creating that good space. So even if I could go deeper, like going back to what we talked about before, going deeper into a pose, if it compromises my breath, not really worth it, right? We have these different priorities rather than this linear, like more is always better mindset. Yeah. And we're going to go much deeper into all of this as we keep going. And, here is usually where I like to talk about, are we really hard on ourselves in our practice, or, do we need to back? We kind of covered that already because of Emily. And I'm going to invite now also, does someone want to give an example in the physical body where we see a really beautiful example of stira and sukha? And I have a little friend here for us. We'll look at him more later. But there's something I always think of as stira and sukha when I look at the physical body. And I think Kristen also mentioned it in the video. Does anyone remember? You can unmute or put in the chat. Crickets? So I want us to keep moving, but I think of the rib cage. Yeah, the rib cage, which is protecting the heart, right? So we have really nice structure. And and good space as well. Okay, cool. We'll play more with this guy later. So before we move on to 1.5, I'm gonna invite now. Generalizations are bad, but I am gonna invite a little bit of a kind of generalization or stereotype, because I think it's going to be really helpful as we start together to look at bodies and learn to look at bodies. And I was taught this really early on, and I think it's just helpful. Okay, so just know that this is a tool. It's more complicated than this. But one way that you can start to think of or look at a lot of students in your class is that you're going to kind of put them into two categories. And I call them the stiffies and the flexies. Okay. All right. So I think people are laughing, right? We're going to get more nuance. It's not good to generalize, but I do think this is actually a really helpful tool as a student, or sorry, tool as a teacher when you go into sort of triage your students. Yes. Thank you. Tyra put it in the chat. So the stiffies, I'm going to think of, and again, this is like super stereotype. Don't, this is just for learning purposes. Okay. But the stiffies, I think of like that bodybuilder type person, right? So the stiffy has a lot of usually strength, right? Like a lot of muscle. Again, I think of like the bodybuilder type, big traps, right? But what are they lacking? Someone want to put in the chat. What is the stiffy lacking? They have a lot of strength. Shay got it. Like flexibility, right? They don't have flexibility. Okay, then we have the flexies. The flexies are like your ex-dancer types. A lot of times women, again, I'm just putting it all out there right now, right? Okay, a lot of times women who have a lot of range of motion. Sometimes they might have hypermobile joints. We're going to talk about that a little bit more later. And they're like, they can just do lots of range, a ton of range of movement. But what are they lacking? And actually, lack of structure, right? So they're lacking that stira, that structure. So one thing that people say to me a lot that I meet in my day-to-day life is they say, oh, well, I can't do yoga, Brett, because I'm not flexible, right? Has anyone ever heard people say that to them? Like, oh, well, I can't do yoga, because they have this idea that that's what yoga is about. But what yoga is actually about is the balance, the perfect sweet marriage and balance of flexibility and strength. So you as a teacher are looking at your class and you're seeing the stiffies, and you know that with the stiffies, they need more ease in their practice. You need to get them breathing. You probably also need to get them to not push to their extreme range, because not always, but a lot of times that's going to be a tendency. And with the flexies, you need to get them to back off and muscularly engage, right? So instead of going into their, deep, crazy split, or, having their hand on the floor in triangle pose, you want to ask them to engage more muscularly. Yeah. So everyone is trying to meet in the middle. And this is actually really exciting, because it means like, and I think this is a statistic that I've heard, but it's like people, it's often the flexies who are more likely to injure themselves, which is really, really scary. Not always, but people who have extreme range of motion, it's so easy for them to push themselves into poses or to do something kind of crazy that ends up tearing something. So you really want to keep them like back off so that they can stay safe. Yeah. So, and then Emily says, I find a lot of flexies are super flexible in one or two areas, but lacking in others. Yes, totally. So, and many people, Linda says, are a mix. They might be flexible in some ways and less in other ways. Yes, also true. But I'm just talking like broadest picture, right? It's kind of helpful when you start to look and triage people right away. And we're going to go into this so in such detail as we look at every single yoga posture. But I think that's just a helpful trick that was taught to me really early on. And I still find it helpful, right? Because certain people, like, again, it's not like the more flexible they are, the better they are at yoga, right? The flexies really need to learn how to back off and muscularly engage in order, because we're all trying to come into balance, right? We're all trying to meet in the middle. Yeah. Okay. And muscles stabilize the joints. We have control over muscles, not tendons and ligaments. Yes, that's true. We're going to go into that more later. Oh, and why I wanted to tie this back to, actually, before we go on, and I should look at what time it is because I'm not even looking at the time right now. What I wanted to tie this back to, and I think this dives right into 1.5 pretty nicely. We want to talk about the definition of vinyasa for sure. But a lot of times, the only way that heat is built in a class is by doing a lot of chaturangas, right? I think that's what Kristen kind of starts to talk about in 1.5. So an approach is often like the only way to build tapas, the only way to build heat, the only way to get people sweating is to do, you know, a lot of Surya Namaskar, a lot of chaturangas. And what I'm going to invite is that actually you can get your whole class sweating just doing low lunge or warrior two if you hold the pose and teach them how to do that muscular engagement that most people are sort of not so cognizant of. And that takes really, really, really good cueing, right? To help people figure out how to turn on their muscles. Because I can do warrior two. In warrior two, right? I'm just hanging out. I have no, and my legs are in perfect, well, no, they're not in perfect warrior two alignment, but they're ish. But again, I'm still not, I'm not hugging my muscles to my bones and having that sense of strength. Yeah. So a lot of people are missing that. And that's why we end up, a lot of teachers, I think, end up compromising by saying, okay, we're going to add in a lot of movement to get people hot, right? Like the chaturangas and the flows. But the reality is, if you're a really good teacher and you know how to cue people so specifically, yeah, verbal cues are so critical, says Heather Lenz. You're going to practice them. We're going to talk about them. They're written out for you in the manual. If you get really good at cueing, you can generate heat in your class without having to do a bunch of chaturangas, right? And now if you want to, that's a different story. But that's just something I've seen over and over and over again, especially as yoga has grown and expanded over the past 10 years, that it just becomes this like aerobic vinyasa flow thing, because I think just a lot of teachers, that's the only way they know how to get people warm. So we're going to try to be way more sophisticated than that. Okay, so who wants to define vinyasa for us? Anyone? I hear it in the chat, but let's have someone unmute. Someone we haven't heard from yet, if you're open to it. And you have a lot of really good hints in the chat, so. No one? Well, what we have in the chat is excellent. We have linking breath and movement. That would be my definition, my personal definition, linking breath and movement. So this is inhale, arms up, exhale, arms down. This is a vinyasa. Okay. Inhale up, exhale down. Super simple. Kristen's definition is a little bit more about, she said, placing your attention, she said, right, in a specific way. Yeah. And Aisha echoed that too, placing your attention in a very specialized way. Linda, flowing with your breath, similar to what I said. Lauren, what we're talking about makes so much sense. Why don't all yoga teachers do this other tapas method? Because it's very hard to get people to muscularly engage. You first of all, you yourself need to have like excellent training in anatomy and cueing and yoga, which I think, you know, a lot of people just don't, or they're, you know, they don't have a lot of experience, or, you know, whatever, or they don't know how to do it in their own body, right? If you don't know how to do it in your own body, it's going to be very difficult to cue someone else to do it. And I don't think it's malicious. I think it's just, you know, kind of lack of education. And also a lot of studios and gyms sort of promote that the class be really fast and have a lot of that kind of movement, which is beautiful. You know, I love teaching power classes, but, you know, I try to also do a lot of cueing to get people to muscularly engage so they stay safe. Okay, so do we all feel like we know the definition of vinyasa? And again, just like everything we've talked about, there's a couple different ways you can define it, focusing your attention in a very specific way, linking breath and movement, linking your breath and movement together. Sometimes people say like in Ashtanga, it's always one breath per movement, right? I think anytime you're linking breath and movement, right? It doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to be fast. All right, and then we end with, or not we end, what time is it? Oh, I'm actually good on time, yay. So we end with a really important exercise, which is what does asana mean to you? So if you only do one homework assignment in the whole first 2 weeks of training, make it this exercise. This is really, really important. And I think Kristen talks about it really beautifully in the video, but getting clear on why you practice asana is really going to help inform your teaching style, right? And remember, we're encouraging everyone to teach from their own direct experience. So for some of you right now, like it's totally okay if yoga for you right now is primarily about the physical, right? Like that's fine. You know, we had, I can't remember, but like beautiful woman in a prior training, and she was like kind of a hardcore Ashtangi, and you know, she that was really like why she came to the practice, and her why she came to yoga was like so beautiful. So there's nothing wrong, you know, it should just be whatever's true, right? There's no right or wrong answer, because this is why it's so exciting and we need so many educated yoga teachers, is because everyone out there that you're going to meet on your journey is at a different place, right? So she's going to have so many students who are going to resonate with her as like really prioritizing the physical practice. You know what I'm saying? And then someone else maybe who's been injured, and yoga for them is so much about like healing or introspection. They're going to be accessing and reaching a different demographic, right? So there's so many different types of students out there who need teachers to meet them where they are right now. So whatever is true for you right now is wonderful and fine, and to be celebrated. Does anyone want to share with us what they wrote? Like unmute and share. Gloria, thank you. And tell us where you're from.
Can you hear me now?
I can, yeah.
Oh, sorry. Gloria, I'm from Southern California, so Redondo Beach area. Sorry, I'm in a very dark space right now. Asanas to me is kind of like using my body as if I were a broom, clearing out the cobwebs in my mind and perhaps the negative energy cobwebs that surround me, like a difficult friendship or relationship. I use my mat as my church. My mat is another sacred space. I experience asana for self-revelation. My asanas ground me and bring me clarity. The poses to me help me rediscover myself. Gives me an opportunity to have a moment of gratitude towards my body and how it carries me throughout life itself. And my body is mine, so no one has it. It's unique and special, and bringing it to the mat is my way of giving myself an act of self-love.
Beautiful. I love it. Thank you so much for sharing. I think Jamie said she was willing to share, and I think she might have also said she was shy, so I'm going to take her up on this opportunity. And to clarify, I think I was saying this journaling exercise is what does yoga mean to you? I'm sorry, that's not what the journaling exercise is. It's what does yoga asana mean to you? Sorry. So just let's get clear on that, because what we're trying to do in this particular exercise is have you have a clear viewpoint on why we practice the physical aspect of yoga, right? So excuse me, sometimes I get excited and I don't read as carefully as I should the way it's written, and a lot of thought went into the way it's written. It's what does yoga asana mean to you? And that was so beautiful. Thank you, Gloria. Jamie, are you still willing to chat? She put in the chat. Okay, awesome.
Hi.
Where are you from?
Oh yeah, Sacramento, California.
Cool.
Oh, that's a lot of me. Wow. My main point for me is building a trust with myself. I went for so long of the attachment to like the physical beauty of what my body could look like, and that self-worth was enwrapped in that. And then and I went in a super unhealthy way. And then I felt like I had detached from myself for many years. And so coming back into my body, like getting to the mat and practicing, it created like a new reacquaintance with myself, and realizing that I could that I was okay to trust myself again, that I was doing this for the right reason because it really felt good inside of my body. When you're talking about breath and how you feel, I felt so much calmer and reconnected and reacquainted with myself. And so those when I have that kind of movement, that's what it means and feels like for me. That's all.
Nice. Thank you so much for sharing.
You're
Especially
welcome.
if you're shy, that was an act of tapas that you did right now, pushing yourself out of your comfort zone to share. So way to embody even the words we're learning today. Let's hear from one more. I think Shay wanted to share.
Oh, hi. Sorry. I have to follow that. Oh, gosh.
Where are you from?
To me, the asana, it gives me a chance to take a break from my mental kind of like spiraling thought patterns, like the vrittis, I guess, where I can get obsessive thoughts. And then when I come to my mat and I'm doing something, each pose is almost like a puzzle that takes up mental energy that allows me to kind of like break out of obsessive thoughts, because I'm focusing so much on my limbs and my breath and elongating my spine that it actually allows me to kind of like break free of like anxious thoughts.
Beautiful. Where are you from?
Oh, sorry. My Shay from Southern California too. I'm from Ventura.
Awesome. Everyone who's in Southern California, come to my Kundalini mastermind workshop in September. Message me if you want to be there. We'll make it happen. It's going to be really, really deep and amazing. So Shay, what she said, it's like, so do you guys see kind of how this exercise is important? Because for her, she sort of defined the physical asana practice. It sounded like very much as a place where she gains awareness from her thoughts, right? So she might teach quite differently than someone who didn't have that perspective. For example, just because I want to make this practical and bring it back to teaching, right? She might say, if that's really, what she decides is her vision and her viewpoint on the physical asana practice, in a warrior one, she's definitely going to do some alignment cues to make sure everyone's safe. But then instead of a lot more of those, maybe she'd say something like, observe what you're thinking about right now, right? Do you feel like you should be, stretching deeper, or are you the kind of person who has a tendency to sort of hold back? Play with that dynamic and then, adjust your back foot as necessary or something like that, right? So does that kind of help how the things you're going to sort of highlight and focus on in your class really is going to be informed by what the physical practice means to you? Like, why are we doing this physical practice? So, and if you did this exercise and you're like, I'm not really sure yet, that's okay. Come back to it at the end of training. But I think it's really, really helpful to just have this clearly defined for yourself, right? Because that way also, like, not everyone's going to like your class and like your style. And then you're not going to care. First of all, don't care, because, you need, in order for people to love you, certain people have to not resonate with you, right? You can't have it both ways. But you're going to come back to this and be like, no, this is my truth. This is why I'm sharing this. This is what the physical practice means to me. And even if you never articulate that, it's going to just come like osmosis through you and into your students. And that's why they're going to come back, right? Because they're going to connect with that deeper why. Okay. Emily, I had a student roll up their mat and leave in class once, and I was like, yes, I'm doing something right. Yeah, totally. That's the attitude you kind of want to have, right? You never know what's going on with people. I like to share, I think I share this story later in the training, but when I used to teach a lot of public classes, I had this one class, and this guy, I was just like, oh my gosh, this guy hates me and hates this class, because the whole class, he was just, I don't know, it was just, he had like an angry kind of expression on, and he kind of wasn't following along that well. And I was just like, this person does not like me or this class. And, you know, luckily I'd been teaching a long time at that point, so I kind of just put it out of my mind, and the whole class was great. And at the end of the class, I made an effort to say hi, because, you know, I like to try to connect with all the students, and I was like, I'm not intimidated, I'm gonna just ask. And he didn't speak English, like, at all. He was like, hello, I'm visiting from, you know, he was like French or something. And he was like, it was really hard for me to follow along, but, you know, I tried, like, barely understood English. So just example, right? It was so funny. Like, he didn't not like the class. He was just having a really hard time following along. And his brow was kind of like furrowed the whole time, because he couldn't understand me that well. And we like were laughing, and, you know, I gave him restaurant recommendations for his trip here, you know, so just goes to show it's okay, right? Get out of our own head. A lot of times people are leaving our class because, you know, they got a call from the nanny and she's locked out of the house. Like, that's happened to me, and I had to leave the class really fast. You just don't know. And especially as healers, which all of us are on this call, we have the tendency to take things very personally, because it's our just first instinct, right? It's just our nature. So it's just something to be aware of. Okay, amazing. So, all right, we're going a little bit over, but let's just do a quick review of the bones. So we won't review them all because we're short on time, but what's the longest bone in the body? Skelly mini me, yes. Does anyone know? Femur, right? Where is the femur? I'll give everyone a chance to think about it, but it's this one right here, right? Thigh bone, yeah, thigh bone, cool. Other little things to call out, axial skeleton, right? Axial skeleton is the skull, vertebra, and ribs. Yep, so axial, just think of kind of the center. Appendicular skeleton, clavicle, scapula, right? So clavicle, scapula, or little wings on the back, or the scapula. Humerus, radius, ulna, and then the femur, which we talked about, and tibia, and the fibula. So this is the tibia, the long bone. The fibula is this one, right? Because a fib is a small lie. Radius is the thumb side of the hand, that bone. And ulna is the pinky side. Yeah. So those are kind of the basics. Can you show radius versus ulna? Yes. And again, rewatch the videos with Kristen because they're really good. Radius is this one, the thumb side of the hand, which can be confusing because it actually is sort of a smaller bone, and it feels like thumbs are rad, says Jamie. Radius, yeah, because sometimes you feel like, I don't know, sometimes I feel like radius should be the kind of larger bone, but it's not. And ulna is the pinky side, this one. Okay, so radius, ulna, radius, ulna. Okay, cool. So we'll play more with him as time goes on. Let's divide you now into your jettas. Let's review. Let me look at my thing. What you guys are saying to each other in your jettas. You're saying who you are, where you're from, a little bit about yourself, right? What you're most excited about training, what you're most excited about, what you're most nervous about, and your favorite yoga pose. And some of you may have already met because I already see familiar faces, which is really fun and exciting. So if you want to drop off, you can drop off. Otherwise, stick around and meet some new people. And our jetta is mandatory. Kind of, but for today, if you're not feeling well, definitely feel free to jump off. So if you are jumping off, do so now, because it's going to actually help me if you drop off sooner rather than later. Yeah, and if it's not your regular day, feel free to drop off. But do it now, because otherwise, so we love you, but go, because otherwise I don't know how many people I have. I love you, but go away. Okay, so I'm going to Do this. Okay, here we go. And I'm going to pause the recording. And then we're going to come back together at the end. Normally we won't do that. You'll just get to kind of hang in your jetsas some of the time, not all the time, but I'm going to bring us all back for today. So go in, meet some fellow classmates. I'm going to jump in and hang out with a bunch of you, make my way around the rooms, and let's stop the recording.